Are you ready to start recording an album? Hands off the microphones. Let's talk about pre-production. I've always worked fast when it comes to making things. I love the spontaneity of creativity, so when it comes to music, I've done a lot to streamline my process for taking something from a passing creative impulse into a workable song. But while there's a lot to be said for being fast and flexible and seizing the moment, when it's time to turn that initial demo into a proper professional recording, or if you're a producer helping somebody else do that, it's really worth taking some time to do your homework. We've talked about pre-production on the channel a little bit already, but today we're going to go a bit deeper into some tips that should help you whether you're producing someone else or you're an artist acting as your own producer. The purpose behind pre-production is to get to the heart of the songs themselves and to discover what makes them tick so we can understand how to develop them to their very best. So the first step, and I know this sounds obvious, is just to sit and really listen to the demos as they are now. Don't worry about imagining what they could become further down the line, and if they're your demos that you've put together, don't sit in your recording space and play through the project file in your DAW, where you could just easily reach out and start tweaking things, bounce them down to audio files and go somewhere else and listen with fresh ears. I tend to like doing this initial demo listening on long train journeys or sitting in the quiet corner of a pub. I'll bring a notebook with me, but we'll get to that stage later. For now, just try and take the songs out of their context and focus on how they make you feel and what elements feel like the core of the song. With the growth of home recording, a demo nowadays can be anything from a rough recording on your phone to a well fleshed out multitrack, and it can be all too easy for us as songwriters to throw in all sorts of layers of instrumentation while we're caught up in the excitement of demoing. So if the demos are already pretty full on, don't ignore those extra layers, but try and develop a sense of what is truly essential to the song. Ask yourself if it would still be that song if you took away this part or that part. If you want to make some notes after listening to each song, go for it, but there's also a lot to be said at this early stage for just holding those thoughts in your head and letting them percolate around a bit and writing them down later after another listen. We're just getting a sense of what the song is at its core and how it feels to you. After that initial listen to get your gut reaction, it's time for what I tend to call vibe notes. Whether you're asking the songwriter for this information or you're the songwriter yourself, the purpose of this is to put together some notes to get a bit more insight into the intention behind the song. Firstly, you as a producer might want to ask what the song is about and how it feels to the artist. This may not line up exactly with what you initially thought when listening to the tracks, but that doesn't mean you should completely disregard your gut reaction. Part of what you bring to the table as a producer is your perspective. Sometimes a song can be enriched by the influence of multiple perspectives. The artist's vision should be the primary guide, but by talking through the differences in your perception of the song with them, you may discover some deeper levels of meaning in it, and when that does happen, it can honestly feel like magic for everyone involved. If you're struggling to get a good sense of where the artist is coming from, and this is just as true if the artist happens to be you, it might be helpful to get into some weirder, more touchy-feely questions to try and develop a shared language to understand the song. Given that we already talk in metaphors when it comes to describing music, like we talk about a note being sharp or an instrument sounding glassy or a spicy chord and so on, why not use that tendency to try and find your way to a shared understanding of the vibe we're going for? It'll take some trial and error to find out what angle to take to get to what you need to know here, but you might end up asking questions like, what would a music video for this song look like? Or if this song was a person, who would they be? Or even, what would this song taste like? It doesn't have to 100% make sense, so long as it makes sense to you. There's no kind of wrong angle to take here, so long as you're able to get on the same wavelength as the artist. Okay, now that we're starting to get focused in on the vibe of the song, we can start to get into the details of how we're going to go about expressing that vibe, talking about instrumentation and general style. Generally, the simplest way to approach this is by putting together a list of reference tracks that contain elements similar to what you and the artist want to shoot for. It's important here to be specific about what you're talking about, so make sure that your notes here make reference to what particular element of the reference song caught your attention. And don't get sucked into the worry that you're going to make something that sounds derivative just because you're taking inspiration from other works. No art exists in a vacuum, and everybody has influences from somewhere. That said, if you're finding your reference tracks are all coming from the same artist, it might be good to talk about what distinguishes this song from their work, and maybe investigating what other elements you might want to introduce to help the song build its own identity as you work on. And if you as the producer don't understand how to integrate some unusual influences into a song, talk to the artist about it. Maybe you're talking at cross purposes and you just need to make sure you're speaking the same language, or maybe it's an idea that they'd thought of in the abstract but hadn't really gotten to the stage of imagining how it would work. If it's the latter, that's nothing to feel bad about, but talking through the intention behind that might lead you to some even better ideas. So now that we've worked out the direction, we can go back to those demos and discuss how we want to diverge from those, for either stylistic or practical reasons. Maybe a song could do with a change in tempo to get it feeling just right, or being transposed to another key to fit the artist's voice. A quick side note on finding the right key, by the way, it's not just a matter of whether the singer can adequately reach the notes. A song can feel very different in different parts of the voice. Transposing a song up or down a bit might make the vocal sound more intense, or more vulnerable, or more hopeful, and so on, depending on the individual voice of the singer. You might want want to tweak the lyrics if some things aren't coming across clearly, or move the structure of the song around. Basically, just taking another look at the construction of the song to make sure it's doing the best job it can of getting the vibe across. Now, producers, please try and approach this as sensitively as you can, and artists, please try not to take these suggested changes personally. And, if you're producing yourself, don't fall into the trap of demo-itis, where you get so stuck on keeping things just the way they were in the demo that you're holding yourself back from making something even better. This is probably the most challenging step of pre-production from an emotional standpoint, so let's make sure we're coming at this with a healthy and flexible mindset. And with that, we're finally ready to start the actual process of recording. Well done, that was a lot to get through, but I cannot overstate the effect it'll have on the final product. You're probably going to find yourself coming back to revisit some of these steps as the project continues, and that's fine, this stuff isn't set in stone. Just try not to get caught in a cycle of indecision that prevents you from actually trying your ideas out in practice. You'll learn more from trying and making mistakes than you ever will from rethinking before you get started. If you're not sure about an idea, you can even throw together a very rough demo for that idea in the middle of the project, just enough to test the idea. This might be particularly handy if you're going to do something expensive or hard to arrange. Make sure you're happy with your string arrangements before you're in the room with the quartet. Just keep moving forward and communicating as you do. You've got this. Thanks for joining me for another one. If it's got you thinking about your next project, go ahead and hit the like button and subscribe if you'd like to hear more. Let me know about your pre-production process in the comments. It's always fun to compare notes. Have fun, and I'll catch you in the next video.